Okay, so as usual, what we'll do is I will lead a practice, and then there'll be a short talk afterwards. Okay, so I'm just getting my screen organized. There we are. Okay, so let's just start with a pausing and noticing. So maybe with your eyes open, perhaps, or with your eyes closed, whatever suits you best. Just pausing in this busyness to get online and everything else that's been happening this morning. Just pausing and kind of interrupting the flow, and perhaps asking yourself, what's going on for me right now? And perhaps checking in to the body. Perhaps checking into the climate of mind, the mood of mind. Perhaps checking into the heart. What's going on in the heart right now? What's the quality of heart? Body, mind, and heart. And then when you're ready, simply coming into the body. So let's just start by establishing the foundations of sitting. Some of you will be cross-legged, perhaps sitting on a cushion on the floor. Some of you will be sitting in a chair with your feet on the floor, or maybe feet extended, legs extended. So whatever your particular position is, really connecting in with the contact, all the points of contact with what's holding you. All the points of contact that gravity is offering. Gravity is offering to just hold the weight of this body. Connecting with seat, with floor, and ultimately with the ground beneath us, with the earth itself. So weight going down. And remembering not so much thinking gravity or thinking the connection, but just moving directly into knowing it, knowing the sensations of contact, of weight. It's almost as if we're growing roots into the ground. So we often talk of grounded and rooted. And then perhaps exploring the other axis of the body, the height that goes up. How does that feel to you? That spine, lifting up out of the pelvis. Shoulders balancing. Perhaps tucking the chin very slightly. Just to feel that little stretch, that alignment through the spine, through the back, up through the neck. And then extending through the middle of the head to the top of the back of the crown of the head, the tallest point of the body. Height going up. And perhaps connecting with, sitting with a sense of dignity, presence. And also with awareness of the space above the head, which ultimately is the sky, the openness of the probably pretty clear blue sky today. So if you'd like to, just connecting with that sense of open spaciousness. So sitting balanced with the earth beneath, holding, and ultimately the sky above, open. And then if you'd like to, also exploring two other sort of compass points in the body. So playing with possibility of strong back. So back holding intention perhaps. Courage. And perhaps just connecting with the sorts of qualities that you would like to bring into this practice. The sorts of directions that you would like to bring into today. Intention. Resting in this possibility of strong back. And then, if you'd like to, balancing that with soft front. Possibility of qualities of friendliness, inclusion. So strong back, balancing with soft front. Rooted and grounded, tall and dignified. And then when you're ready, simply coming to the anchor of the breath. Or if you'd prefer, another anchor that would support you to have a place to come back to in this practice. Perhaps the feet on the floor would suit you better today. Perhaps the hands touching or in your lap might suit you better today. But if it's okay for you, coming to the breath, or if you're in another anchor, coming up close to wherever you've chosen to focus in. Wherever you've chosen to explore in detail perhaps the rising and falling. And even if you're in the feet or the hands, there'll be some slight resonance to the movement of the breath. If you move up close. So we're really exploring in detail the moment by moment sensations of perhaps breathing. Always remembering that if at any time the mind wanders, it's really helpful to say to ourselves, it's okay, it's not a problem. It's just what minds do. So noticing and then coming back to your chosen anchor. Coming back with this sense of intention and commitment, but also with a sense of friendliness, friendliness to the mind that likes to wander. And coming back up close, perhaps to the very beginnings of the next in-breath. How does that feel? And then if you'd like to, so really responding to what would be best for you, you can stay up close to your anchor if you choose, or you can widen a little bit. So perhaps widening to include the whole body. Just this sense of this body sitting, this body breathing, touching. Whole body breathing. And then perhaps as we sit here breathing, perhaps opening into even beyond the body to sounds, into just the flow of experience coming and going. So as we sit here, just noticing if there's any part of the experience that holds qualities of unwanted, perhaps has some echo of pain. Might be physical pain in the body. It might be some sort of emotional pain, perhaps some background story that's been troubling. Perhaps some event that's happened, or perhaps some just ongoing climate of mind, some mood, some persistent mood. So inviting you to just notice, is there any part of your experience that is just not quite as you want it? And if that's the case for you, whether it's a direct physical sensation or pain or discomfort, or something that's sort of more located in the mind, perhaps the heart, perhaps some pain in the heart. Inviting, if it's possible, and if it feels that you'd like to, inviting the possibility of just including. Perhaps finding, even if it's an emotional pain, finding some resonance in the body, and perhaps just having a way of saying hello. Might be very familiar. Might be a particular place that you can find. Is it possible just to include, just to bring in, if you like? No need to focus hugely on it if you don't want to, if it doesn't feel right to, but just including it in this wider context of the breath coming and going. Feet on the floor, hands in the lap. The body breathing. So we're just gently practicing with including. Remembering that soft front. So if it's possible, just another step to include with some sense of maybe a little bit of friendliness. Maybe not. Maybe just a hello. Not pushing in any way, but just always knowing that there's the breath to come back to, or your chosen anchor of feet and hands. Always going very gently with this, but it's including in a sense of context of the body, context of the sky of mind of experience. And just breathing with all of experience. So there's the whole body breathing. That sense of being rooted and grounded. The possibility of spacious and open. Perhaps just including whatever is here, pleasant and the unpleasant. With just a little drop of friendliness. Friendliness to the mind that wanders, to the breath that breathes. And if at any point you notice that your mind is busy thinking or getting involved in some storyline perhaps, taken away, drawn away, then always knowing that we have the anchor to come back to. So that's our primary foundation, if you like, coming back to hands, feet, breath. That holding. And then choosing whether to stay up close to the breath or your anchor, or whether to go slightly wider into the whole body context, whole body breathing. Or perhaps for some of you, wider still to this possibility of sky of mind. All sorts of parts and aspects of experience coming and going. Wanted and unwanted, including them all. Breathing with it all. So perhaps a bit of a stretch. So, just a few thoughts, really. Just a few thoughts to share with you. So, this theme of wanting a solution, wanting to solve a problem, is very current, I think for all of us. But I think it's certainly current for me. And it's current, I think, for a number of people who I've been in touch with this week. So it seemed like a good focus. It seemed like perhaps a useful thing for me to think about, actually, more than anything else. And then just to share some ideas with you. I think it's very easy for us to imagine that the practice is going to work in some way. It's going to do something specific. And we often have, of course we do. We have certain things that we would really like the mindfulness practice to work with. So even though, those of us who've been doing this for a bit, even though, we know this isn't very helpful, there's a kind of subtle way it still creeps in. Well, perhaps if I practice a bit longer today, I might feel a bit happier. or I know it's very common for us to hear, I did a 3-step breathing space and it didn't really work, didn't really work. I often notice that, I'm feeling a bit low, a bit glum, a bit bothered about something. And so I think, I'll go and practice. And, I get up after the practice, I feel a bit better, hopefully. There's nothing wrong with feeling better, but there might still be some background glumness. It's like, I might have, a number of us might have a pain, some persistent pain. I've got a bad knee and an old injury, maybe, yes, I can see somebody holding their neck. So, a pain perhaps in the shoulder or the back. And it's still there. It doesn't go away. And I think we've all got this kind of illusion at somewhere deep in the back of the mind, that somehow mindfulness will sort it. And actually mindfulness helps tremendously. There's no doubt about that. And also this idea that, there are things that we do that are very helpful. It can be tremendously helpful to actually do something, but it's the intention that we bring with that doing that I think is probably most important. I was fascinated by, some of you will have been aware of Gemma Griffith's talk last week with the Friends of Bangor. And if you haven't managed to connect with it, then go on the Friends of Bangor site and see if you can connect. But Gemma Griffith gave a very good talk on the science, where the science of mindfulness comes in. And I was really riveted with the way she pursued this, actually. I thought it was so interesting and so skillful of her. So she had this sort of ongoing question, and the question was, looking at the research that has been done, did the amount of practice that participants, or any of us, we're all participants, we're all practitioners, did the amount of practice that we do affect the outcomes that we get? Yeah, so You know, more practice, better outcomes. And what she came up with the research sort of trawl that she did was, well, yes and no, which is really interesting. So it wasn't a linear connection. So doing an extra, you know, doing more practice doesn't equal inevitably a better outcome, you know, better well-being, better mood, whatever. Doesn't necessarily equal it. But there is a relationship there, and that's what's very interesting. And the relationship is actually, it's complex, but the connection between the amount of practice we do and what we get out of it is this little hook in between, which is the way we relate to experience, the way we relate to it. So as many of you know, I work with people with cancer. I've had cancer myself. And I often say to people when they're coming into the course before we actually start, you know, the cancer isn't going to go away. That's not, the mindfulness isn't going to directly affect a chance of recurrence or not, but it might affect quite a bit the way you actually relate to the cancer, the way you actually feel about it, the way you manage it. And certainly the research evidence shows that. So quite interesting just to look back on perhaps I'm going to go over slightly, I hope that's all right. Quite interesting perhaps to look back on the practice we've just done. So as I guided, there was quite a lot of emphasis on grounding, on body, on sitting on the ground, on contact between the feet and the floor. So there was, we probably spent at least 5 minutes rooting and grounding, tall and dignified, which is still in the body, and that sense of intention, strong back, and the soft front, bringing in the kind of more gentle qualities. So quite a lot of time in the body before we actually move to the breath or focus up close to the anchor, one of the anchors, which is also in the body. So it's quite important, I think, in all our practices, for those of you who are perhaps a little bit less experienced, because you've got a whole range of experience in the room, I was going to say, but like in the Zoom room. Quite interesting just to remember that it's quite important to have some kind of stability, to establish a kind of steadiness, and the body offers us that. So the sort of groundedness and the steadiness, some of us would call this concentration, up close. Yeah, so we establish that first, and then perhaps there's an opportunity to turn towards, and then we open up and we include. And goodness, isn't it important? You know, if you think what's going on in the world at the moment, this business of including in a friendly kind of way. This business of actually just saying hello. I know it's a bit cheesy, but just to find some sort of signature place in the body. I mean, for me, it's just the top of my body barometer. It's just here in the sternum, just at the top of the abdomen. It sort of arrives very frequently, and maybe just saying hello, oh hi, you know, there you are, you're with me again today. Yeah, bit like a passenger in the car seat. Oh hello, I'm going to give you a lift. Yeah, and you know, how are you? And just perhaps a little bit of exploring around that, and just to bring this friendly curiosity. Remember that curiosity is all about not knowing. It's about don't know. We don't get curious about things that we know back to front. Well, in mindfulness, we learn to do that. But in sort of everyday life, we're not that curious about, I don't know, the bus going past yet again. Whatever, yeah? You know, but we can bring that curiosity to just this signature place, just this story that comes again, just this pain in the back. Here it is again. No, I don't want it. But can I just include it? Can I just breathe with it? So what we're doing, of course, is we're not adding anything extra by doing that. We're not adding the storyline. We're not inflating or fueling all the ways that we know tighten and often make things an awful lot worse. Yeah. So I'm going to finish up with reading you a poem. And I'm not going to read you the whole poem, but perhaps you can find it on the internet, all the rest of it. But it's one I'm very fond of. It's called The Gift. The Gift. And it's by a Chinese-American poet called Li Young Li. So Li as in L-I. And then there's a hyphen, Young. And then the next word is Li, L-E-E. So Li Young Li. It's a beautiful poet. So The Gift, I'm just going to read you. It's a poem about getting a splinter. So that some of you may know it already. To pull the metal splinter from my palm, my father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd removed the iron slither I thought I'd die from. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still. A well of dark water, a prayer. And I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness he laid against my face. The flames of discipline he raised above my head. I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness he laid against my face. That's the practice. That's the practice. So lovely to see you all. Let's unmute and say goodbye. And this will be my last session. And I've really loved being with you on these Thursday mornings. And I wish you well. I'm sure our paths will cross again. And these sessions, the ones that I've remembered to record, and I have remembered to record this one, will go on my website. So you can find them again on my website, or tell people about them. So do unmute and let's say goodbye. Have a really good day. Don't get too hot. Terribly hot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trish.
Thank
Trish.
you. Wonderful.
Bye. Thank you. It's lovely.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Take care, Trish.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely seeing you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.